Hello everyone, this is Builder Shit, and today I want to discuss something about consoles as a whole. And one thing I've been hearing is people saying that the ninth generation or the 10th generation will be the last generation of game consoles. And to be completely honest here, I completely disagree with that. And and overall today, I just want to discuss the main thing, and that is when I think game consoles will go away, mostly or completely. Two, what would happen to probably the exclusives, which I'll probably discuss that last. And third of all, just mainly go more in depth, like on how I think game consoles would go out and all that stuff. And finally, number four is just gonna be why, like, I don't think the 10th and ninth generation, or the ninth or 10th generation, is going to be the last. And just even go over the history of people claiming, and like the times that people said that this or the next generation would be the last. For example, so let's get to it. So the first thing I overall want to discuss is I want to discuss overall, like, the idea that the ninth or 10th generation would be the final console generation. And to be honest here, like I said earlier, I completely disagree. So, a lot of people are saying this because, first of all, you're having online gaming becoming more common. And by online gaming, I'm not talking about playing Call of Duty and playing online with your friends. No. I'm not talking about that. Though that could lead to a change in game consoles, but not the complete end. The online gaming I'm really talking about, though, is overall, in my opinion, like gaming, like playing games that are being ran on a server, like Xbox, Game Pass, or GeForce now, if you know what I mean. And the fact that they're becoming more common in most of the West. And key terms here, the West is like on internet, playing games that are being hosted from a server or being ran on a server. Why do I keep forgetting the terms? Like the main term for that is all. Well, it's becoming more common and it's becoming more accessible to more people, but it's still not everywhere, and not everyone's internet is completely perfect for it. I could, be completely honest here. Yes, I could do GeForce Now at my house if I had this subscription. I could get my phone and load up my Xbox, load up Doom Eternal on Xbox Game Pass and play it on my phone. And being completely honest here, internet has came a long way. Like, funnily enough, I used to think you needed like gigabit speeds because I thought like all the processing power like was being delivered to you, like it was like the entire internet was being used for, like, I don't know how to term it, but I used to think that the internet was your processing power, or that it was like the server was your processing power, and that's what kind of made me think that, oh, it must have been 10, must have required a gigabit speed. But no, it's basically what you would call, basically, imagine hooking up like let's say your Roku up to your TV. And then you turn on Netflix or YouTube. And you screen record it. And then you broadcast it to the entire world on like a website. Of course, that'd be illegal to do it with a Netflix show, obviously, copyright reasons. But you kind of get my point. That's how online, like, in GeForce Now and Xbox Game Pass, from what I understand, work similar to that. But feel like you're taking a game controller or even your phone to an extent. What? You're taking a game controller that you connect via Bluetooth, or they're doing it on PC, USB, or etc. And then each time you press a button, it sends something over the internet to like that thing saying, "Hey, this person pressed the button." And yeah, and then it's not completely perfect. It's not everyone has gigabit speeds. People live varying distances from main servers that do this. Like, and you also got count in several more things too. Like internet speeds as a whole, like is something that really needs to be counted in. And just internet. Not everyone has good quality internet. Not everyone has like not everyone has like double the bare minimum. And in fact, a lot of people are still even running on dial-up connections. And I'm serious. People still run dial-up connections. Hold up. So people run, and I'm serious though, some people still run on dial-up connections because that's the only choice they have. You also got a lot of people who do not even have access to the internet, and I'm going to, of course, hear a lot of people try to rule that out, saying that many game consoles now are, you need an internet connection for most game consoles to be useful, unlike 10 years ago with a 360 or 20 years ago with a GameCube or a Nintendo 64, if you know what I mean. Because, and going down that side things, games now, there's not many games that have the game, like the base game on the disc. Updates are also big themselves. Many game consoles, like most discs now, unless counting Cyberpunk, which I know I have. Yes, you can mock me. I have Cyberpunk for the Xbox One. Even though I don't give a crap about the lag, because being real here, I was born in lag. It came with 2 discs for installing. And I give you another example here. Let me just show you it. Okay, one's a PC game, and another's a game for the Xbox One. Yeah, I have it in Steelbook form. So this Cyberpunk, unlike a lot of games you find on Xbox One, PS4, this actually has like 2 discs for helping you install the game faster, which I appreciate a lot, by the way. Because this helps people who don't have internet connection or don't have good internet connection be able to play the game without needing some super internet speed connections. But sadly, most consoles now even want you to run an internet connection to literally be useful anyways, or be able to be used. That speeds up. And I have Black Ops 1 on PC. There's a lot. In fact, Black Ops 3, there's like 6 discs in this as a whole. Yeah, that goes up to 6. Most PC games, they only just come with the code. Like a lot of PC physical copies, from what I've heard, only come with the code in them. That's a damn joke, if being honest here. If that's going to be the case, then why the hell don't you just go on Steam and get the game itself? That would just be a better, instead of just walking to Walmart. Like, what's the purpose of physical copies if that's going to be the case? And I get that many games are just getting too big, but let's be completely real here. There's alternative to discs if your games are getting too big. And discs can always improve if you're able to fit more space on them. There are many things you can argue, and yes, there's a good likelihood that 10th generation consoles, if 10th generation consoles probably won't have anything for physical games. Like we're already seeing, like 8th generation, you had the Xbox SAD, if you know what I mean. Xbox One S all digital, which had nothing for you to put a disc in. The Xbox Series S, which is just a less powerful Xbox Series X, does not have a disc slot in it. Even though I think Microsoft should make a $350 Xbox Series S with a disc thing included. I think that would benefit them too. Two, for people who want to play them backwards compatible, or at least make a disk drive for the Xbox, or at least make some sort of USB disk drive for the Xbox One, or something for the series. Oh my lord, what the fuck's wrong with me? So, or game develop or game console makers could go back to the console. Could go back to the cartridge route, and you could complain as much as me saying that cartridges now would be expensive, but being honest here, they'd probably last a bit longer than CDs if CDs don't need as much care as CDs if the cartridges are done properly. Yeah, if you do something like this and like make a USB flash drive cartridge, you're gonna probably first of all get people easily pirating it if you don't set it up properly, and second of all, if you turn this to USB-C, it's going to probably break easily, and then you got to replace tire sucker, which like every other cartridge, by the way. That's why you just go back. That's why you could always take the Nintendo Switch alternate route of things for the cartridges, which cartridges. If game consoles went back to cartridges, there'd be more room to actually put more processing power into consoles. And that's why, because cartridges, you can make them smaller now. It's not like it's going to take up as much space as a CD like a Nintendo Entertainment System cartridge. Which are big, and yes, I have an NES somewhere in the house, and yes, their cartridges are big. Like the literal size of a CD, like in length and width. Well, width and height. Length and height, I don't even know the full dimensions of that shit. Yeah. But it's now 2021. If game consoles want to go back to cartridges, they do something a little bit bigger than the Switch cartridges, but it's not going to be that big. In fact, I'd say if they want to take as much space as up as anything else, they could do freaking 4, which I think would be which I think would probably be ease of access or something. Because you can go on from there. I think the future storage goes in this too, but I think I need to trek back to where I was talking about originally. So online gaming like GeForce now, like I don't think they're gonna put it in. You got internet in the country that's going to like prevent, like not everyone in the United States is perfectly great for internet wise, like good enough for GeForce now, etc. Like I'd probably say that most 99% of the country would be good enough for stuff like GeForce Now, and like 20 or 30 years, depending on 20 or 40 years, depending on whoever takes power, depending on who takes power in those 20 years for this country. But even then, that wouldn't roll. But even if most in the U.S. and Europe or in Canada, etc., get good enough internet for stuff like GeForce Now is a common thing, game consoles still won't die out because you can't forget the third world, which you'll still be trying to get their internet in. While the West is advancing and they could do a lot more things, the third world is going to be stuck on game consoles for like another 50 years. So that really just knocks the idea of 9th and 10th generation consoles being the last. And another thing to mention overall is I think that oh my god, I forgot some things. Another thing to mention overall is that game consoles are I remember. Another thing to mention is that I remember like back in like 2010 or like 2000, like early 2010s as a decade, people People were believing that the 8th or ninth generation were going to be the last console generations because of mobile gaming. Yeah, I completely I shit you not. People thought mobile gaming. People thought Angry Birds. People thought Temple Run, Jetpack Joyride, Subway Surfers. They thought that crap was going to overtake console gaming. They thought Dragon Veil and Singing Monsters was going to overtake console gaming. I really want to know the sanity of half these people. Are these people really sane? It's like, here's why. Because from what I've read, and from what I've seen, mobile phones are like 5 or 6 years, or like behind, like PCs. They're behind PCs. A gaming phone is like 5 years behind the modern gaming computer. It's not going to be running Call of Duty, Black Ops, Cold War, or Battlefield 5 on it. It's going to barely run that thing if you somehow manage to get it running through like some weird jailbreaking of your phone or rooting it or something. It's barely going to run. Like, there ain't no way on this planet it would, like any modern game would run on a gaming phone. Yeah, like you could do some really cool emulation on a gaming phone. Yeah, like you could emulate Wii games and 3DS games pretty damn well on a gaming phone. Surely, of course, like, and the amount of graphical things you do would make it even better. Not for you're gonna be able to play a lot of games too, but at the same time, it's still like mobile phones are still too far away, technological wise, to even be considered a successor to sort of console gaming. And plus, PCs are way too expensive. Like PCs, powerful is like enough to run modern games are a bit too expensive. Or like double the price of an Xbox, of like a 9th generation console. And you could tell me as much as you want how you could get a PC as powerful as an Xbox One or powerful as Xbox One X for like 500. But you gotta remember this. The only reason why those games managed to run on consoles like Xbox One, while run absolutely terrible on a PC with similar specs to the Xbox One, is that these games are ported, and I mean ported. There are development teams that port this stuff to the console. If you just port the overall version over, you'll get the damn same thing as Cyberpunk 2077. Trash. Like, horrible frame rate stuff. Don't you dare argue to me that that good PCs good enough for playing modern games at 60 FPS 1080p etc. is as cheap as buying an 8th generation or an Xbox One or an Xbox Series X. It's not at all. It's not at all. It's not even as cheap as a One S. Not as cheap as a Series S. Not as cheap as a One X. Not as cheap as a PS4. It's pricier than that. And double the price, to be completely honest. Honest, if you want a good... Here. Out of that territory, then that little part off. Like, how long? It's been going for 20 minutes. Holy shit. And this off. Mobile games are nowhere close. People aren't going to switch to PCs. And if you're poor shaming people, I'm sorry, but you probably need a damn fish shoved deep in your face. Because not everyone can afford an RTX 3080 computer, either with an i9-9900 in it, or with 32 or 64 gigabytes of DDR5 RAM, DDR4 RAM, etc., and a bunch of your stuff that you call PC gaming, like, or beast computer, or even type of stuff. And again, you can go ahead and tell me that we do some things I seems to, and like I said earlier, I think now moving out. Let's move on to a little bit. Let's just get out of that area finally. So, moving on. To be honest, if anything I think the next thing we'll discuss is when I think is a bit of a future of consoles as a whole, and when I think consoles are going to die out as a whole. So, if I'll be honest here, putting the real date for when consoles are going to die out, I'd say it'd be like, as a whole, wouldn't be for another century. You could tell me, it wouldn't be for another 50 years. And I could somewhat agree with you if you were to say around 75 years. But I'm talking about 100 as a whole for the entire world. Because like I mentioned earlier, by 2050, we may have good enough stuff for doing GeForce Now and that type of stuff. But Africa and India, as well as parts of Iran and Indonesia, aren't going to be good enough for this. Half of China isn't going to be good. Wouldn't be able to sustain half this stuff. You got it. And not to forget, Russia's probably still not going to be able to. People in Russia are probably not going to be able to do GeForce Now half time neither. Still. It's not. So, game consoles are probably going to be around longer in those areas. And I feel like after the 2060s, game consoles are going to be a rarity in the West. Or 2050s. They're not going to be common in the West. But instead of there being the 3 or 4 normal game consoles we have now, there's going to be literally 10 or 15 of them because different companies in different countries are going to be manufacturing them. It's going to be like the late 70s and early 80s and the early history game consoles again. You're going to have a lot of consoles. A lot of people don't have a choice, and those areas are probably going to experience a game crash. Being completely honest here, because there's going to be so many choices. Game developers are going to have to do so many licenses. And I'm just being completely honest here. Game consoles are not going to die in the West or in the world for another 100 years. Like for the same reasons I mentioned. Global development as a whole, depending on different areas, are going to really. Global development as a whole in different areas is going to really determine how long game consoles can be around. And I don't think no one can really fully know the complete, but we could probably make good estimates like 70 to 100 years. Though one thing is for certain, game consoles will change heavily in those 70 to 100 years. And I mean heavily. Game consoles, being completely honest here, will evolve. The 11th generation of game consoles, or the 12th, is more than likely probably going to be handheld devices. There's probably going to be like one, because because we be getting ready to hit a limit, etc. And stuff's gonna get small to the point where you could probably you would have a good 2035 standard and console standard handheld device. That'd be just powerful as a good 2030 gaming computer. Or 2035 gaming computer, if you know what I mean. Well, being honest here, 2035 gaming computers are going to be freaking supercomputers, practically. Yeah, they're probably quantum computers, being honest here. And then after that, I would go even further. And at some point, handheld gaming consoles are going to stop being a thing in the West. And then they're going to turn, and then you're going to get variations of VR headsets. And they're going to turn into chips. If it's for like VR headsets or something like. And then at some point they're going to go away. Game consoles are going to get smaller. And they're going to change a lot, but that doesn't mean they'll be gone. You can say the game console as we may know it may die, may no longer be a thing after the 10th generation, but game consoles as a whole will still be a thing past the 10th generation for several more generations after that. The 9th is not the last, the 10th is not the last. GeForce Now is not going to put GeForce Now and Xbox Game Pass is not going to put a bullet hole through the idea of the 10th generation consoles or the 11th. We're still going to have consoles for a while. Now let's go over what happened to many of your exclusives, from what I can guess. What would happen to many of your exclusives after game consoles die out. And being honest here, many game console exclusives would probably no longer be exclusives after the 2050s or 2040s. Or B, some of your console exclusives are going to probably get bought out by bigger companies. And some console companies are probably going to merge. There's a lot of things that can happen in 100 years. For all we know, Microsoft and Nintendo may finally merge or something. Unlike what happened 20 years ago where they basically laughed in each other's faces about the idea of buying it. Now it's, in my opinion, it's seeming a bit more likely knowing how Microsoft and Nintendo are getting along with each other. So getting along pretty damn well. And even if they don't buy out, who knows? You would probably Nintendo may do like something for like Xbox consoles too at some point. Maybe like an online service for like older titles, like classic ones or something. Who really knows? And to be honest, if these game console exclusives are still around after the end of but the exclusives do end up after like console exclusivity goes away. Then after consoles go away, then I'd probably expect them to be on different service on like something similar companies equivalent to GeForce Now. Like for example Mario Legend Zelda being on Nintendo's equivalent, and you know what I mean. I think it's about time to end this off though. Oh, just because I think I mainly discussed everything. This is Builder Shed, and I am out. See ya.